Henry Richardson called his 12-year-old daughter Mindy for the 7th time that week. As always, it rang, then went to voicemail, her bright recorded voice cutting into him. It had been 3 weeks since Mindy left Denver to spend 1 week with her maternal grandparents, Jan and Jonathan Marr, after Henry's wife Sherry died of cancer 2 years earlier. At first, the trip seemed normal, daily video calls, stories about hikes and rocks she'd collected. Then the calls grew rare. Then they stopped entirely. The few texts Henry received felt wrong, too formal, not like Mindy. When Henry pushed for answers, Jan brushed him off. Mindy was busy, Henry was obsessive, he needed to let her enjoy her vacation. The word obsessive stung, because Henry had been warned after Sherry's death not to smother Mindy. But this didn't feel like anxiety. It felt like danger. The Marrs had never liked Henry, a crime scene photographer, too much death, too much darkness. After Sherry died, they grew more critical, making pointed comments about Mindy's health and Henry's home being gloomy. They insisted Mindy needed a break and convinced Henry to let her go. Now, standing alone in his quiet house, Henry's instincts, honed by years of reading what didn't fit, screamed that something was wrong. He checked public records on the Marrs property and noticed unusually high utility usage for a 2-person household. Then his phone rang from an unknown number. A nervous young male voice said, "I need to talk to you about your daughter, just not over the phone. Meet me in public." 20 minutes later, at a King Soopers produce section, a young employee brushed Henry's shoulder and slipped him a note. It read, "Your daughter is not okay. She needs help. 47 Maple Street. Come at midnight. Come alone. They're watching. Destroy this note." Henry burned it, then searched the address. It led to a home owned by Dr. Philip O'Connell, a psychiatrist specializing in adolescent behavioral disorders, and his wife Elena, a social worker. The pieces formed a picture Henry didn't want to see, but he'd learned truth didn't care what he wanted. That night, he prepared like he would for any case, phone charged, backups ready, camera gear checked. He tucked his legal handgun into his waistband and drove to Castle Rock. At 47 Maple Street, the porch light glowed and the front door sat slightly ajar. Henry slipped inside and followed low voices down a hallway into a home office. On a large monitor, he saw footage of Mindy in what looked like a clinical room, white walls, a bed with restraints, and 4 stand. She was curled up and hollow-eyed, like someone already disappearing. A voice behind him said, "You shouldn't have come alone." Henry spun to see Jonathan Marr holding a syringe. Before Henry could reach for his gun, others grabbed him. A sting hit his neck. The room tipped and went dark. Jonathan leaned close and whispered, "You killed our daughter, Henry. Now you'll watch us unmake yours." Henry woke zip-tied to a chair. Jan stood with folded arms. Jonathan sat calm and cold. Dr. O'Connell watched with clinical detachment, Elena nearby. They told Henry Mindy was safe, staying with the O'Connells for help. They accused Henry of causing Sherry's death, not by violence, but by influence. Sherry's cancer, they insisted, had been treatable. They claimed Henry pushed holistic nonsense and turned Sherry against medical care. In their eyes, he killed her. Now they would take Mindy as justice. O'Connell framed it as professional concern. Henry had an unhealthy attachment, was isolating, controlling, emotionally abusive. He claimed Mindy had disclosed fear, anxiety, and confusion about boundaries. They said they were deprogramming her from Henry's influence. Then came the trap. They'd call police and report Henry as a disoriented intruder having a paranoid breakdown. With O'Connell's testimony, it would look credible. Emergency custody would shift to the Marrs while Henry was locked in psychiatric care. Henry tried to explain the note, but he had no proof. He destroyed it. Anything he said sounded paranoid. Sirens neared. Jan and Jonathan put on concerned faces. O'Connell prepared his assessment. But they made one mistake, they talked too much. Henry's truck camera had been running. And before entering, he'd activated a backup recording app on his phone. As police burst in, Henry played helpless, eyes closed, breathing even. Inside, he promised himself, "Hold on, Mindy. I'm not done." Henry spent 72 hours on a psychiatric hold, careful not to give anyone ammunition. His evaluator, Dr. Timothy Archer, wasn't part of the Mars circle and seemed more interested in facts than a story. Henry explained the timeline. Mindy's communication stopped. He grew alarmed. He followed the note, saw Mindy on a monitor, was drugged. Archer noted Henry sounded rational and that a father's concern made sense when a child abruptly vanished from contact. Henry told Archer directly, this was revenge. The Mars believed Henry killed Sherry. They were weaponizing mental health systems to punish him. Then Henry dropped a crucial detail: he had recordings. Archer released him with a report stating Henry wasn't a danger and recommending family therapy, not hospitalization or custody removal. It wasn't a full shield, but it was something. Outside, Henry's lawyer, Billy Mason, an old friend turned fierce family law attorney, handed Henry his phone. Billy had pulled strings to get it back quickly. The recording was there. They listened together, Jonathan and Jan openly describing their plan, O'Connell detailing how they'd build a custody case, Elena praising Mindy, opening up. The confession was clear. In Colorado, Billy explained, one-party consent recordings are admissible. This audio could blow their case apart, but they needed to be strategic. If the Mars realized Henry had proof, they might do something desperate: move Mindy, hide her, or intensify the manipulation. So they quietly built an airtight case while a private investigator, Larry Suarez, watched the Mars home. Larry found no signs of a child living there. Days later, he delivered the truth: Mindy was at Meadowbrook Youth Wellness Center, a private residential treatment facility in the mountains, isolated, controlled, and officially framed as therapy for anxiety and parental trauma. Henry saw photos of Mindy entering a car with Elena. Mindy looked pale and thin. Larry explained the staff likely believed the O'Connells had legal authority. Without a court order, forcing Mindy out could backfire. An emergency hearing was scheduled for the next day. Billy planned to present Sherry's medical records, the confession recording, proof Mindy was placed in a facility without Henry's knowledge, and evidence of alienation. Henry also assembled something only he could: years of time-stamped photos showing a normal, loving father-daughter life after Sherry's death, homework, hikes, pizza nights, school events. Not obsession. Family. He dug into Sherry's medical records and found a crucial detail: Jan and Jonathan were present at appointments, pressuring Sherry to start chemo immediately. Notes showed Sherry felt conflicted and wanted time to research. Sherry hadn't refused treatment because Henry controlled her, she resisted because her parents pressured her. When the cancer progressed, the Mars needed someone to blame. Henry was the easy villain. Still, Henry feared one thing: Mindy's voice. If she'd been manipulated long enough, she might repeat their narrative in court. Desperate to hear her before her reality was rewritten completely, Henry made a reckless choice. With a temporary badge arranged through Larry's contacts, Henry entered Meadowbrook during shift change as temporary staff, there to observe. The facility looked like a resort, but inside it felt like controlled emptiness. A tired nurse, Barb Kirby, gave him a quick tour and warned him not to interact with certain residents. She pointed out one room as special care requiring O'Connell's approval. Room 14. Through the small door window, Henry saw Mindy sitting on the bed, knees to chest, staring at the wall. When Barb left, Henry moved fast. He remembered the keypad code from watching her earlier, 7-2-9-1. The lock clicked. Henry slipped in. "Mindy," he whispered. "Sweetheart, it's Dad." Mindy turned slowly. Her eyes held fear, no warmth, no recognition. She said flatly, "You're not supposed to be here. They said you pretend to care so you could control me." Then she said the words that shattered him: "You made Mom die. You killed her. And you tried to make me replace her." Henry started recording on his phone. He spoke gently, choosing truth over force. He told her Sherry made her own medical decisions. He told her cancer wasn't someone's fault. He reminded her of their normal life before this: vacation, 7th grade plans, camping ideas, photography club. He asked her when she first felt afraid, before she came here, or after. For a flicker, confusion crossed Mindy's face. Tears came. She shook her head as if fighting two realities at once. Footsteps rushed in the hall. Henry had seconds. "I'm going to fight for you," he told her. "I'm going to get you out of here." Hold on. Mindy's voice rose, panicked. I don't want you to fight for me. Leave me alone. The door burst open, Barb, a guard, staff. Henry was dragged out. Mindy curled up crying on the bed, terrified and torn. Henry was thrown out and arrested for trespassing. It looked terrible, exactly what the Mars wanted, the unstable father breaking into a facility. But Henry had what he needed, proof of Mindy's conditioning and the psychological script they'd implanted. At the emergency hearing the next morning, the Mars attorney painted Henry as unhinged, psychiatric hold, trespassing, obsessive behavior, a dark job, a traumatized child. Dr. O'Connell's affidavit described emotional abuse and enmeshment. Then Billy dismantled it. First, Sherry's medical records, showing Sherry's agency and her parents' pressure. Then the Mars' own social media posts hinting at removal plans months earlier. Then the bomb, the audio from 47 Maple Street. In court, Jonathan's voice played, "You killed our daughter, Henry. Now you'll watch us unmake yours." The room went cold. The Mars' faces drained. O'Connell looked less like a professional and more like a co-conspirator caught under bright lights. Billy argued this was confession, conspiracy, drugging, false imprisonment, fraud, parental alienation. He revealed Mindy's location at Meadowbrook and played the recording Henry captured with Mindy, her robotic language, fear responses, and confusion. Billy pushed. O'Connell diagnosed severe parental trauma without speaking to Henry or reviewing neutral sources like teachers or pediatricians. A judge ordered O'Connell's session recordings turned over for independent review. Henry testified simply, he loved his daughter, he panicked because communication stopped, he acted out of fear, and he was right, Mindy wasn't safe. After recess, Judge Reginald Chambers delivered a grave ruling. He condemned the adults for prioritizing vengeance over a child's well-being. He denied the Mars emergency guardianship petition and kept custody with Henry. Because Mindy's mental state was fragile, the judge ordered an independent psychologist to oversee deprogramming and blocked O'Connell from all contact. A guardian ad litem was appointed. Henry would begin with supervised visitation, increasing as Mindy stabilized. The judge also referred the Mars and the O'Connells for criminal investigation. It wasn't instant reunion, but it was rescue. Dr. Archer, the psychiatrist who had evaluated Henry, became Mindy's new therapist, tasked with untangling the lies from her mind. The early supervised visits were painful. Mindy wouldn't look at Henry. Later, she asked shakily if her grandparents lied. Henry said yes, gently, without turning it into a war. She admitted the story still felt true sometimes, which was the point of conditioning, lies that mimic memory. Week by week, Mindy began to ask real questions, about Sherry, about grief, about whether Henry needed her too much. Henry didn't deny the hard parts, he had leaned on her emotionally after Sherry died. But he insisted that family supporting each other isn't abuse, and that adults should have helped them instead of exploiting their pain. 2 months later, after careful therapy and slow trust building, Mindy finally came home. She stood in the doorway of their small house and said, almost surprised, "It feels safe. Small and safe." They ordered pizza and watched a movie. Mindy fell asleep on the couch with her head on Henry's shoulder. He didn't move, just sat there, breathing in the weight of realness, his daughter, alive, home. The legal consequences moved slowly but steadily. Henry, still a documentarian by nature, compiled every piece of evidence, the confession recording, the medical records disproving the Mars story, the social posts showing intent, the facility proof, the therapy reports detailing harm. He sent it to oversight agencies and to an investigative journalist. The exposé went viral. Meadowbrook was investigated and shut down. Licenses were revoked. Dr. O'Connell lost his medical license. Elena faced professional consequences. Other families came forward with similar stories. The Mars were convicted, their revenge became their ruin. A year later, Henry and Mindy stood at Sherry's grave with pink roses. Mindy, older and stronger, asked if her mother would be proud. Henry said Sherry would be proud of Mindy for surviving, and proud of him for never giving up. As the sun set over Denver, Henry lifted his camera. Mindy smiled, her first real smile in a long time, and said, "Yeah. Let's document this." And they did, father and daughter, still healing, but together, turning stolen months into proof of survival, rebuilding memories that no one would ever be allowed to rewrite again. This is where the story ends. How was today's story? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and where you're watching from. Like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories.